Here's exactly how to keep your projects organized in Jira with custom hierarchies. So I'll dive into what exactly this looks like first, and I'll show you a real world example, and then we'll dive into how to actually set it up. So I'll go over to my list view in one of my test projects, which is Dunder Mifflin. In my timeline view, I have a custom hierarchy that I created, and it looks a little something like this. So at the very bottom, I'll start from the bottom and go up. We have our typical subtasks that link to a task. Then we have a few different tasks that roll up into one epic, which is one level above a task. And then we have multiple tasks, or in this case, just one, we have multiple epics, or in this case, just one epic rolling up into initiative. And you could have multiple hierarchies if you want here. You could have something above initiatives. Oftentimes programs or campaigns are very commonly used that span multiple quarters or sometimes multiple years at a time. And then below that, you have your initiatives, which often span weeks to months at a time. And then epics, which is typically around a few weeks at a time. And then your tasks, which may be a day or a few days. And then your subtasks, which should typically be roughly a day or so or less. So that's the typical hierarchy. And as you can see, it's really great to visualize, especially on a timeline, but also when you actually jump into a work item. So this purchase chairs for Office is an initiative. And then we have an epic, which I could click on. And then we have an epic for find quotes. And then we have quote from a few different companies. I could jump into those and I could start adding subtasks in here if I'd like as well. So you could visualize that hierarchy not only in the work item, but also on this view here, which is really, really great, especially if you have multiple initiatives that are consecutive, that are assigned to different people, that are going to be triggering or ending or starting at specific timeframes and sort of overlap one another. And you could go over this time frame and really just plug and play and create a really easy and simple way to visualize your work on a specific hierarchy. You could also do this in list view. Inside of the list view, you could view exactly what belongs to what by just collapsing these list items and seeing everything rolled up into the very highest parent work item. So that's how to use it in a real world scenario. And oftentimes I like to think about these as subtasks or standard subtasks. Tasks are just the one-off things that you have to do. Epics are sort of the bundle of a few tasks. So something a little bit bigger that may take a few weeks. Above that, you have initiative, which is something that takes a couple of months or sometimes multiple weeks that have multiple epics rolling up into them. I think of these sometimes as like bigger projects or bigger things that I need to complete. And then above that, you could have programs or like your campaigns that can last multiple months or longer. That's kind of how I like to think about it and visualize it. And there's a lot of ways you could use this, and there's really no wrong way. So feel free to layer this however you'd like. And there's really no limit to how many hierarchies you can have, but definitely don't go too crazy with that. So how do we actually set this up? So let's go into our work items, top settings on the top right, work items. Then we go to our work types and we make sure that they're created. Usually when you start Jira and you maybe haven't created your work types yet, sometimes you'll be missing initiatives, projects, and others. So if you want to know how to create those, that'll actually be in the next week's newsletter. So feel free to wait for that to come out. But those are going to be the work types that we need. Once you have them set up, you go to your work type hierarchy tab. And in here, you need to make sure that your layers are created. So oftentimes you'll already have epic. You may or may not need to create initiative and project or feature. And you could create, again, as many levels as you like. So I could drop in another one, call this one like program. And then all I have to do is click this drop down and select which work item I'd like to associate with it. Don't know if I have one for program, but I do need to make sure that it's not one that I'm using already. I select that and then I update it and I save my changes. Now keep in mind, you don't want to do this if you're actively using a lot of different hierarchies and a lot of different projects and teams are already using this, because it can break a lot of things. So I might remove initiative or move initiative one hierarchy level up, which will break every single link that I have inside of Jira related to that initiative. So keep in mind that this can break a lot of things down the road. So that's how you set them up. Once you have those rolling, all you have to do is go back to the project, go to your project settings. And this is specifically for company managed projects. And then in here, you go to your work items, types. And then all you have to do is make sure that the type that you have created, go to actions and edit work types. You drag that into this project. So if it's, say, improvements here, I'll just drag that in. I'll click save and you're good to go. You have that work type associated with this project. And now you can use them in the exact same way that I demonstrated in the beginning of this tutorial. Real quick, I know this looks like a lot. And if you'd rather just have me and my team help implement exactly what I'm showing you in this video, that is exactly what we do. We're currently opening up 4 more slots for our Jira strategy. We only run 4 of these per month. If you're interested, hit the first link in the description below.